Rocky Balboa sits behind a folding table covered in microphones when a young reporter stands up and asks the question everyone's been avoiding. "Mr. Balboa, why do you fight?" The room goes quiet. Cameras stop clicking. Pens stop moving. And what Rocky says in the next 3 minutes doesn't just answer the question, it reveals the truth about why any of us do what we do and changes how everyone in that room thinks about struggle, purpose, and what it means to be alive. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, December 1976. Wednesday afternoon, 2:34 p.m. The downtown Marriott Hotel, third-floor conference room, fluorescent lights humming overhead, folding chairs arranged in rows, maybe 50 reporters packed in, local media, national media, sports writers, human interest columnists, everyone who wants a piece of Rocky Balboa, the local fighter who went 15 rounds with Apollo Creed 3 weeks ago, the guy nobody gave a chance, the guy who lost the fight but won something bigger, America's new obsession, the ultimate underdog. Rocky sits at the front of the room behind a folding table. The table is covered with microphones, 6 of them, different stations, different networks, all pointed at Rocky like weapons, like they're interrogating him instead of interviewing him. Rocky's wearing his only suit, dark blue, bought it at a secondhand store for $40. Tie slightly crooked, white shirt with one button that doesn't quite match the others. He looks uncomfortable, out of place, like someone dressed him up and put him on display, like a fighter in a museum instead of a ring. Mickey sits to Rocky's right, wearing his old wool suit, the one he wears to funerals, gray, worn at the elbows, but clean, pressed, respectful. Mickey's hands are folded on the table. His face is neutral, watching the reporters, protecting Rocky, ready to intervene if questions get too personal, too invasive, too disrespectful. Adrian sits to Rocky's left. Simple dress, navy blue, pearl necklace, hair up. She looks beautiful, nervous, her hands in her lap, squeezing each other. She hates crowds, hates attention. But she's here because Rocky asked her to be. Because Rocky needs her, always needs her. She's his anchor, his reason, his everything. The press conference has been going for 20 minutes. Standard questions mostly. How do you feel about the decision? Do you think you won? What's next for Rocky Balboa? Rocky's answering them. Simple answers, honest answers. Not polished, not media trained. Just Rocky being Rocky, saying what he thinks, what he feels. No filter, no pretense. A reporter from the Philadelphia Inquirer asks about training. Rocky talks about running stairs, about hitting frozen meat, about Mickey's gym, about working hard when nobody was watching, about believing in himself when nobody else did. A reporter from Sports Illustrated asks about Apollo Creed. Rocky says Creed's the best fighter he's ever faced. Says Creed hit harder than Rocky thought possible. Says Creed earned his respect. Says if they fought again, Creed would probably win again. The reporters write this down. Quote-worthy. Rocky admits Creed would win rematch. Headlines write themselves. A reporter from the New York Times asks about money, about the $150,000 purse, about what Rocky's going to do with it. Rocky's uncomfortable with this question. Money feels private, personal. But he answers anyway, says most of it's going to pay debts, says he's going to move to a better apartment, says he's going to buy Adrian something nice, says he's going to help Mickey fix up the gym, says he's going to put some away for the future. Responsible answers. Boring answers. The reporters look disappointed. Want something juicier. Want Rocky to say he's buying a Cadillac. Want excess. Want the rags to riches story to include riches. 23 minutes into the press conference, a young reporter in the back row stands up. He's maybe 25. Skinny, glasses, notebook in hand, looks fresh out of journalism school. Idealistic. Still believes reporting can change the world. Still believes the right question can reveal truth. He waits for the current question to finish, waits for Rocky to finish answering, then raises his hand. The moderator points to him. He stands. The young reporter says, Mr. Balboa, I've been sitting here listening to these questions about training, about money, about Apollo Creed, about all the surface stuff. But nobody's asked the obvious question, the important question. He pauses. The room is quiet, everyone waiting. The reporter continues. Why do you fight? The question hangs in the air, simple, direct, profound. Why do you fight? Rocky looks at the young reporter, really looks at him, sees something in his face, genuine curiosity, not looking for a soundbite, not looking for controversy, just looking for truth, looking for understanding, looking for the real answer that nobody else has thought to ask. The room is completely silent now. Cameras have stopped clicking. Pens have stopped moving. Every reporter is watching Rocky, waiting. This is the moment. This is the real story. Not the fight, not the money, not the fairy tale. The why, the reason, the purpose. Why does a 30-year-old man let himself get beaten bloody in front of thousands of people? Why does anyone do it? What drives that decision? What justifies that sacrifice? Rocky doesn't answer immediately. He's thinking, processing. This isn't a question you answer quickly. This isn't a question you answer with prepared statements. This is the question that requires truth. Real truth. The kind that makes you vulnerable. The kind that reveals who you really are underneath everything else. Rocky looks down at his hands. Those big, scarred hands. Knuckles still swollen from the fight 3 weeks ago. Tape residue still visible on his wrists. Fighting hands, working hands, hands that have been hitting things since he was a kid. He flexes them, feels the ache, the constant ache that never fully goes away. Then he looks back up at the reporter, at all the reporters, at Mickey and Adrian, at everyone waiting for his answer. Rocky says, "That's a good question." His voice is quiet, not because he's uncertain, because what he's about to say matters, deserves respect, deserves to be heard. He continues, "Nobody's ever asked me that before." Not like that, not honestly. People ask me how I fight, who I want to fight, when I'm fighting next, but nobody asks why. Rocky pauses, gathers his thoughts, then starts talking. Really talking, from the heart, no filter, no preparation, just truth. I fight because it's the only thing I'm good at. That's the simple answer, the honest answer. I ain't smart, barely made it through high school, can't do math past basic arithmetic, can't spell good, can't write, can't do office work or technical stuff or any of the things that people with good jobs do. I ain't got skills, I ain't got education, I ain't got connections. What I got is the ability to take a punch and keep moving forward. That's it. That's my skill. That's what I bring to the world. The reporters are writing. Fast. This is gold. Raw. Honest. Real. But Rocky's not done. He's just getting started. But that's just the surface answer. The real answer, the why I really fight, it's more complicated. Rocky looks at Adrian. She nods, encouraging him, telling him it's okay. Keep going. Say what needs to be said. Rocky takes a breath, continues. I fight because my whole life people looked at me and saw nothing. Saw a dumb kid from a bad neighborhood who wasn't going nowhere. Saw someone who was going to work manual labor until his body gave out and then die forgotten. And you know what? They were probably right. That's probably what should have happened. That's what happens to most guys like me. We're born in places like South Philly. We grow up poor. We don't get educated. We don't get opportunities. And we fade away. Nobody remembers us. Nobody cares. We're just statistics, just bodies taking up space until we ain't no more. Rocky's voice is getting stronger, more passionate. This is deeper than anyone expected. This isn't about boxing. This is about existence, about meaning, about mattering. But here's the thing. Fighting gave me something. It gave me a way to prove I wasn't nothing. When I'm in that ring, when I'm throwing punches, when I'm taking punches, when I'm refusing to quit, no matter how bad it hurts, I ain't invisible no more. I ain't just some dumb guy people ignore. I'm someone. I'm Rocky Balboa, the fighter, the guy who don't quit, the guy who stands up no matter how hard you knock him down. And that matters. To me, to the people watching, to everyone who feels invisible, like I felt invisible. The room is dead silent. This isn't what they expected. Expected platitudes about loving the sport, about competition, about glory. But Rocky's giving them something else, something deeper, something that makes them uncomfortable because it's too real, too honest. Rocky continues. When I was a kid, maybe 10 years old, I was walking home from school. Some older kids, maybe 15, 16, they jumped me, took my shoes, just took them right off my feet, left me standing there in the street in my socks. And I went home crying to my old man, told him what happened. You know what he said? He said, Rocky, the world is full of people who are going to take from you. Take your stuff. Take your dignity. Take your hope. And you got two choices. You can let them take it. Accept it. Become a victim. Or you can fight back. Maybe you lose. Maybe they beat you worse. But at least you didn't just let it happen. At least you stood up. Rocky's eyes are wet now. Not crying, but emotional. Remembering. That stuck with me. That idea that fighting back matters even if you lose. Because losing with dignity is better than winning without trying. So I started fighting. First on the street, then in gyms, then professionally. And every time I step in that ring, I'm that 10-year-old kid again, refusing to let the world take from me without a fight, refusing to be invisible, refusing to accept that I don't matter. A reporter tries to interrupt, wants to ask a follow-up, but the moderator shushes her. This is important. Let Rocky finish. Rocky says, people ask me why I kept fighting after I had 38 losses, why I didn't quit, why I didn't accept that maybe I wasn't good enough. Here's why. Because quitting would have meant accepting what everyone said about me, that I was a bum, that I was wasting my time, that I should just get a regular job and fade into nothing like everyone else. And I couldn't accept that, wouldn't accept that, even when I was losing more than winning, even when I was making $150 a fight, even when I was collecting debts for Gazo to pay rent. I kept fighting because it was the only thing that made me feel alive, the only thing that made me feel like I mattered. Rocky looks at the young reporter who asked the question, makes eye contact, says, you asked me why I fight. I fight because the alternative is accepting that life is just about surviving, just about getting by, just about existing until you don't. And I can't accept that, won't accept that. I want to matter, want to be remembered, want people to say, Rocky Balboa, he was someone, he stood for something, he fought for something. Even if that something is just refusing to quit, even if that something is just proving that heart matters more than talent. That's why I fight. The room is silent, completely silent. 50 reporters, not one of them writing, not one of them moving, just listening, absorbing, processing. Because Rocky just gave them something they didn't expect, something they didn't know they needed. Truth. Raw, unfiltered, uncomfortable truth about why people do what they do, about why struggle matters, about why refusing to quit matters, about why existing isn't the same as living. Rocky says, when I fought Apollo Creed 3 weeks ago, everyone said I was going to get destroyed, said I didn't belong in that ring, said it was a waste of time. And maybe they were right. I lost. Creed won. On paper, nothing changed. He's still champion. I'm still a guy from South Philly with a losing record, but something did change. I changed. Because I proved something to myself. Proved that I can take the best punch the best fighter in the world can throw and still stand up. Proved that I belong. Proved that Rocky Balboa ain't nothing. Rocky's voice cracks slightly, emotion overwhelming him, but he keeps going. And it ain't just about me. It's about everyone who watches me fight, everyone who sees themselves in me, everyone who's been told they're not good enough, everyone who's been knocked down, everyone who's been invisible. When they watch me fight, when they watch me refuse to quit, they see what's possible. They see that you don't have to be the fastest or the strongest or the most talented. You just have to refuse to stay down. You just have to keep getting up. That's the fight. That's what matters. Rocky stops talking. looks around the room, sees tears in some eyes, sees understanding in others, sees that he's communicated something important, something that transcends boxing, something about being human, about struggle, about meaning. The young reporter who asked the question says quietly, "Thank you. That's the best answer I've ever heard." Rocky nods, says, "Thanks for asking." The press conference continues for another 15 minutes, but nobody's really listening. Everyone's still processing Rocky's answer, still thinking about what he said, about why he fights, about why any of us do what we do, about whether we're living or just surviving, about whether we matter or we're just taking up space. When the press conference ends, reporters file out slowly, quietly. Usually they rush to file stories, rush to meet deadlines, rush to move on to the next thing. But not today. Today they're walking slowly, thinking, processing. Some are rewriting their entire stories, because the story isn't about a fight anymore, it's about purpose, about meaning, about why a 30-year-old man with everything against him chooses to step into a ring and get hit for a living. And the answer isn't what they expected, isn't about money or fame or glory. It's about refusing to be invisible, about refusing to let the world take your dignity without a fight, about proving that you matter even when everyone says you don't. The young reporter who asked the question approaches Rocky as the room empties, says, "Mr. Balboa, can I ask you one more thing?" Rocky's standing now, stretching, ready to leave. Says, "Sure." The reporter says, "You said fighting makes you feel alive, makes you feel like you matter, but you lost to Apollo Creed. You've lost 38 fights in your career. If you keep losing, does that mean the world is right? That you don't matter?" Rocky thinks about this. It's a fair question, a hard question. Then he says, "No, because winning and losing ain't the point. The point is trying. The point is refusing to accept what everyone else accepts. See, most people, they look at their lives and they see limitations. They see all the reasons they can't do something, all the reasons they're not good enough, and they accept it. They stop trying. They settle. They survive instead of live. I refuse to do that. Yeah, I lost to Apollo Creed, lost a lot of fights in my career, but I showed up, I tried, I gave everything I had, and that matters more than winning. Because trying means you haven't given up, means you still believe you're worth something, and as long as you believe that, you ain't lost. Not really." The reporter writes this down, says, "Can I quote you on that?" Rocky smiles. "Quote me on all of it, everything I said today, because it's the truth. And truth is the only thing worth saying." That evening, Rocky and Adrian walk home. It's cold. December in Philadelphia. The kind of cold that makes your breath visible, makes your fingers numb, makes you walk fast and keep your head down. But Rocky and Adrian walk slowly, taking their time. Adrian's arm linked through Rocky's, her head on his shoulder. Comfortable, safe, together. Adrian says, "That was beautiful, what you said today." Rocky says, "You think so?" "I know so. You made everyone in that room think, made them question, made them see boxing as more than just violence, made them see you as more than just a fighter." Rocky's quiet for a moment, then says, "I meant every word." "I know you did. That's why it was beautiful." They walk in silence for a while. Then Rocky says, "Adrian, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why do you love me?" Adrian stops walking, turns to face Rocky, looks up at him, her eyes serious, says, "Because you're real, because you don't pretend to be something you're not, because you care even when caring hurts, because you stand up even when staying down would be easier, because you see me, really see me, not shy Adrian, not quiet Adrian, just Adrian, and you love me anyway." She pauses, then says, "Why do you love me?" Rocky doesn't hesitate. "Because you believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. Because you saw something worth loving when I thought there was nothing worth loving. Because you make me want to be better, want to fight harder, want to matter more. You're my reason, Adrian. Everything I do for you. To make you proud, to deserve you, to prove that the faith you put in me wasn't wasted. They kiss, right there on the street, in the cold. In December, two people who found each other despite everything, despite odds, despite expectations, despite a world that said they didn't belong together. They kiss and the cold doesn't matter. Nothing matters except this moment, this connection, this love. The next morning, Rocky's answer to "Why do you fight?" is printed in newspapers across the country. Front page of the sports section. Some papers put it on the front page period. The New York Times runs the full quote, 3 paragraphs. Unedited, the headline reads, "Rocky Balboa explains why he fights and why any of us do anything." The response is overwhelming. Letters pour in, thousands of them, from people all over the country, all over the world, people who read Rocky's words and saw themselves, saw their own struggles, their own invisibility, their own fight to matter. Letters from factory workers who feel unseen, from single mothers working 3 jobs, from veterans with PTSD, from addicts trying to get clean, from anyone who's ever felt like the world was taking from them without asking, anyone who's ever felt like they don't matter, anyone who's ever been knocked down and had to decide whether to get back up. They all write the same thing, essentially. Thank you. Thank you for saying what I feel. Thank you for fighting when everyone said you shouldn't. Thank you for proving that heart matters, that effort matters, that refusing to quit matters. Thank you for making me feel less alone. Rocky reads every letter, every single one. It takes days, weeks, but he reads them all, cries reading some, laughs reading others, feels the weight of what he said, feels the responsibility. Because he's not just Rocky Balboa anymore, he's a symbol, a representation, a voice for everyone who feels voiceless. And that matters. That means something. That's bigger than boxing. Mickey reads some of the letters too, says to Rocky, "You did something special at that press conference, said something that needed to be said, reminded people what courage looks like, what heart means. That's worth more than any championship belt. That's legacy." Rocky says, "I just told the truth." Mickey says, "Most people can't do that, can't be that honest, can't be that vulnerable. They hide behind words, behind excuses, behind fear. You didn't. You stood there in front of 50 reporters and told them the truth about struggle, about pain, about what it means to refuse to quit. That takes real courage." 6 months later, Rocky fights Apollo Creed again, the rematch. This time, Rocky's not just trying to go the distance, he's trying to win, trying to prove that his words weren't just words, that belief and heart and refusing to quit can actually lead to victory. Not just moral victory, actual victory. The fight is brutal. 15 rounds again, both fighters leaving everything in the ring, both hurt, both exhausted, both refusing to quit. And in the final round, Rocky lands a right hand, catches Creed clean. Creed goes down. The count reaches 10. Rocky wins, becomes heavyweight champion of the world, proves that everything he said at that press conference was true, that heart matters, that belief matters, that refusing to quit matters, that dreams aren't just dreams, they're possible. After the fight, the same young reporter finds Rocky, says, "Mr. Balboa, you won, you're champion. Does that change your answer? Why you fight?" Rocky, exhausted, beaten, barely able to stand, says, "No, winning don't change nothing. I still fight for the same reason, to prove I matter, to refuse to be invisible, to show everyone who feels like they don't belong that they do. That's what this belt means. Not that I'm the best fighter, that I'm proof that heart can win, that belief can overcome odds, that refusing to quit can change everything. That's why I fight. That's why I'll always fight." The reporter writes this down, looks at Rocky, says, "Thank you for everything you've taught us." Rocky says, "I didn't teach nothing. I just refused to quit. Anyone can do that. Everyone should do that. That's the lesson. That's everything." 20 years later, Rocky's retired. His fighting days are over. His body's broken, hands permanently damaged, face scarred, brain showing early signs of damage from too many punches. But he's alive. He's remembered. He matters. And one day, a journalism student finds the original article, the one from December 1976. The press conference where Rocky answered why he fights. The student reads it, reads Rocky's words. And something clicks, something changes. The student realizes he's been sleepwalking through life, going through motions, accepting limitations, not fighting for anything, not standing for anything, just existing. The student writes Rocky a letter, says, "Mr. Balboa, I just read your answer from 1976 about why you fight, and it changed my life, made me realize I'm not living, I'm just surviving, I'm accepting what the world gives me instead of fighting for what I want. Your words woke me up, made me realize I have to fight, not in a ring, but for my dreams, for my purpose, for mattering. Thank you for showing me what's possible. Thank you for refusing to quit. Thank you for proving that heart matters more than anything else." Rocky reads the letter, smiles, shows it to Adrian, says, "This is why it was all worth it. Every punch, every loss, every struggle, because 20 years later, some kid reads my words and decides to fight for his life. That matters. That's legacy." Adrian says, "You changed the world, Rocky, not by being the best fighter, by being the most honest one, by telling the truth about struggle, about refusing to quit, about why any of us do what we do." Rocky says, "I just told my truth. Turns out my truth is everyone's truth. We all want to matter. We're all fighting to be seen. We're all trying to prove we're worth something. The difference is most people hide it, pretend they don't care, pretend they're not struggling. I didn't pretend, I just told the truth. And truth connects people, makes them feel less alone, makes them want to fight harder." Today, that press conference is legendary. Rocky's 3-minute answer to "Why do you fight?" is taught in journalism schools, shown in psychology classes, referenced in books about purpose and meaning. Because Rocky didn't just answer a question about boxing. He answered a question about existence, about why we struggle, about why suffering matters, about why refusing to quit is the most important decision anyone can make. When people think of Rocky Balboa, they think of the underdog who beat Apollo Creed. They think of "Gonna Fly Now" playing while he runs up museum steps. They think of the iconic image of him raising his fists in victory. But the people who really understand Rocky, who really get what he represented, they think of that press conference. That moment when he was vulnerable, when he told the truth, when he explained that fighting isn't about winning, it's about refusing to be invisible, refusing to accept that you don't matter, refusing to quit no matter how hard the world hits you. That's Rocky Balboa's real legacy. Not the fights he won, the truth he told, the honesty he showed, the courage to say what everyone feels but nobody admits, that we're all fighting, every day, to matter, to be seen, to prove we're worth something. And the people who win aren't the most talented or the strongest or the luckiest. They're the ones who refuse to quit, who keep fighting even when they're losing, who stand up even when staying down would be easier, who choose to live instead of just survive. Why do you fight? What's your ring? What's your opponent? What are you refusing to quit, even though everyone says you should? Because that's the question that matters, not whether you're winning, whether you're trying, whether you're standing up, whether you're refusing to be invisible. That's what Rocky taught us. That's what his 3-minute answer revealed. That's the truth that changed everything. So ask yourself, why do you fight? And if you don't have an answer, if you're not fighting for anything, then maybe it's time to start. Because life without struggle is just existing. And existing isn't living. Rocky knew that, proved it, showed us all what's possible when you refuse to accept limitations, when you stand up even when everyone says stay down, when you fight for something bigger than yourself, when you prove that you matter. That's why Rocky fought. That's why any of us fight. To matter, to be remembered, to prove that heart can overcome anything. 3 minutes, one question, one honest answer. That's all it took to reveal the truth about being human, about struggling, about refusing to quit, about living instead of just surviving. Thank you, Rocky Balboa, for fighting, for standing, for refusing to quit, for showing us all what courage really looks like, not in victory, in the decision to keep fighting even when victory seems impossible. That's the lesson. That's everything. That's why we fight.